and welcome everyone to today's Synergist product demo webinar, How Smart Companies Build World-Class Ergonomics Processes. I'm Kay Bechtold, Managing Editor of the Synergist, the magazine of AIHA. I'd like to thank everyone for joining us today, and especially VelocityEHS, Humantech, for sponsoring this webinar. Today's product demo is scheduled for 30 minutes, and we have a lot to cover, so I'm going to dive right in and quickly introduce today's speaker, Kent Hatcher. Kent Hatcher, Director of Ergonomics at VelocityEHS, partners with companies to develop, manage, and sustain global ergonomics programs using software solutions for Fortune 1000 clients across a broad spectrum of industries. And now I'll turn the presentation over to Kent.
Great. Thank you very much, Kay. I'm excited to be here. Thank you so much to AIHA for asking me. I'm just going to share my screen here and call it my presentation. All right, and I trust someone will tell me if you can't see my title slide. That would be Kay. Again, I'm in a very privileged position here because I get to talk about something that I've lived and breathed for really the last 20-25 years. I'm a certified professional ergonomist at VelocityEHS. And today what I'm going to do is I'm going to share with you the general philosophy that when we partner with companies, how we suggest and how we work together to drive down strains and sprains in their organization. We're going to, the bulk of today is going to be showing how we can leverage technology to do that, and how really as much as one can, you can have the knowledge and expertise of a certified ergonomist on demand from your handheld device. So we'll talk more about that. But I am going to, just so you don't have to look at me the whole time, I'm going to stop the video. So to introduce, of course, I'm part of VelocityEHS. We are the world's largest EHS software company. If you're not familiar with the name VelocityEHS, we have over 20 different EHS modules, but you probably are familiar with a couple of them. MSDS Online is our legacy chemical management system. And so I know a lot of you probably have used MSDS Online or come across that before. And then our industrial and office ergonomics module is actually powered by Humantech. Humantech, who I joined 17 years ago and is headquartered out of Ann Arbor, Michigan. We were acquired by VelocityEHS in the summer of 2018. And it's been just a really great fit as we innovate and try and, as much as possible, invest in our technology to partner with companies all around the world on how to do industrial and office ergonomics right. For those of you that are familiar with Humantech, we started more than 40 years ago, originally as a consulting company for ergonomics. And then through the years, we transformed ourselves into a training company and a management consulting company. But then starting about a decade ago, really trying to figure out, well, we don't have that many ergonomists. There's truthfully not that many out there. So how can we share our expertise with our customers around the world? And of course, the answer was leveraging technology in order to do that. And then accumulating in 2018, of course, with the acquisition of us into VelocityEHS. And it's been a great partnership thus far, and we're really excited about it. For the purpose of today, and I'm very aware of the time, and so my contact information will be at the end. So if I don't get to something, or if you'd like more detail on something in particular, I'm happy to respond to you on an individual basis. But I thought I would start right at the very beginning. I'm not sure how many of you have had much exposure to industrial ergonomics in the past, but I usually start with this. Ergonomics is not a health and safety issue. That usually goes over really well at health and safety conferences when I present that. Ergonomics is about engineering and design. We find that the majority of issues that are going to increase the risk of developing a strain or a sprain are rooted in design, and that they really only become a health and safety concern once really it's manifested itself into symptoms in the individual. So where we focus our efforts is not on teaching people how to move their body in a more safe fashion. We teach companies how to look at the design of their work environment, the workstation, the tools, the processes, as to how we can design out as much as possible the opportunity for people to make the wrong decision. And by that, I mean, move a parts bin closer. Don't deliver stuff on the ground. Don't rely on the human to have to make the decision on how to keep themselves risk-free. Listen, I think the world of a lot of people, but humans are wet, sloppy machines, and generally we cannot be trusted to make the right decision all the time when it comes to our body mechanics. So what we're going to try and do is to identify those issues in our work environment that we can change, manipulate, redesign, tweak, such that we're not asking people to go into postures or exert forces that are going to punish themselves. The ergonomics maturity curve, I find, when I'm talking to a large audience like this, it is a really good place to frame our whole vision of what ergo is. This maturity curve is a good way for you to plot yourself, your organization, to find out really where your efforts are best allocated. When we talk about the journey to ergonomics maturity, and you're looking down in that reactive zone, well, that's probably where a lot of you are, and where you should have your processes shored up for sure. And that is when an injury occurs, when a discomfort is reported, that you have some sort of committee or incident investigation team to go out and to assess the root causes of that injury, and then to try and make some changes, either engineering-wise or administrative-wise, to reduce the likelihood of that injury happening again. But it is triggered by that one event. As companies move up into the preventive phase of ergonomics maturity, this is typically where you're going to see things like safe lifting techniques, job rotation, workplace stretch programs, health and wellness initiatives, all noble efforts and important to be sure. But the idea of a job rotation or wellness or work conditioning, what you're really trying to do is you're trying to build a stronger, fitter human to withstand the rigors of what you're exposing them to on a day-to-day basis. Very important, but reactive and preventive are not ergonomics. Ergonomics doesn't start until we start to quantify the risk of a musculoskeletal disorder in the same way that you measure noise or chemical exposure or anything else where you have thresholds and metrics, quantitative metrics that you're using. Why wouldn't we do that for ergonomics when strains and sprains are probably number 1 or number 2 on your list of largest sources of workers' comp costs, or certainly the number of injuries? And so we really have to transition our thinking away from training the human to actually quantifying the risk associated with the design or setup of a task. And then once we've got a handle on that, we can advance up into that final stage of maturity. And that's really where we're making sure that we are not implementing any new workstations or processes that are going to expose someone to risk. Or, if we happen to be involved in product design, we are trying to design the product for our folks on the assembly floor to be not as punishing to put together. In terms of what kind of pinch grip forces we need to install that wire harness, for example. So that's really as we progress up the curve. I hope this makes sense. And you can dabble a little bit in each of these zones, but it's important that you recognize maybe where your shortfalls are. And certainly if you'd like to have a conversation and to do a little gap analysis of your own program, I'm happy to help with that as well. So we can use the results of that gap analysis to really find out where we are with our keys to success in ergonomics. We've been doing this a long time, and the programs that do the best have all of these following characteristics. It's a participatory program, means it's involved in lots of different levels of the organization. It's proactive. It's focused on risk reduction, and when I say risk, I mean the risk of a musculoskeletal disorder. It engages many people, cross-functional teams up and down the organization, and it is focused on changing the workplace. All of the most successful programs that certainly I've come across in my career really lent credence to these 5 keys and worked hard to optimize their performance at them. All right, So that sets the foundation for where we are. I'd like to take maybe 10 or 15 minutes now and to walk you through really what's been just a game change innovation in terms of how organizations can get a handle on their musculoskeletal disorders. And that's by using the Humantech industrial ergonomics software. So what you see here is our initial login page. Now, of course, if you have single sign-on and you'd prefer that this syncs up with that, of course that's possible, and we do that all the time. The thing I'd like you to note here is that the system is available in 20 languages. So for our customers that use this in dozens or hundreds of locations around the globe, they can have each one of their facilities, whether it's a warehouse or a manufacturing plant or in the field, they can have the subject matter expert log in and interact with the system in the language that they choose. So that's really important as our customers use this as a common language for all their operations, regardless of where they are geographically. When one logs into the system, you will see that the system is divided into 3 phases: learn, do, and manage. Now, we're going to start with the learn section. Now, as I mentioned, I've been doing this for a long time, and I can't tell you how many training classes I ran by traveling out to a manufacturing facility in who knows where around the world, and that we would collect maybe 15 people in a conference room, and we bring in lunch for 2 or 3 days, and the lunch was always really good. We had a good time. It was a lot of PowerPoint, though. We delivered a lot of PowerPoint slides because I had to really impart this knowledge on folks about some of the foundational quantitative tools that we were going to use. So what we did a few years ago is we really bought into this flipped classroom method, or a blended learning model, whereas we are going to have students log in and complete a series of e-learning courses ahead of time. Because I know that on-site training is always great and value added, but what we realized is that you guys were paying a lot of money to have me stand at the front of a room and teach people what back flexion of more than 20 degrees was and wrist extension of more than 45 degrees. And that wasn't a great use of our time. And so what we did is we put that core foundation knowledge into these interactive e-learning courses. And the students must complete this before they go on and complete an in-person workshop with an ergonomist like me. So now when we do meet and we are completing the workshop, first of all, I can make sure that everybody has gone through and actually satisfied the e-learning components, and that I'm checking in the couple of weeks leading up to our workshop to make sure that the students have done their pre-work. And so that when we meet on site or virtually, as the case for the last year, that we can just focus on the practical application of these tools. So we can move on to the do portion and start to add job assessments. Now, our job improvement process is 5 stages, and you'll see that down the left. This is this very methodical way that we teach individuals on how to attack a problem. But of course, the very first thing is the baseline analysis to know exactly what risk level this current task is right now. So we are going to populate the media gallery first. This is where we're going to take photos and video of the operation. The videos, we can upload 3 videos of 500 megabytes each. Those are 5 to 10 minute videos, depending on how high the quality is on the video. But you're going to populate this job assessment record with some media from the media gallery. And you'll see that to start our advanced tool assessment, the one with motion capture, the very first thing is we're going to do an initial screening of the video to make sure that it passes the snuff test for the artificial intelligence. And then we're going to send it to special servers that's going to process that video and then send it back to us. While the video is being processed, and it only takes about 8 to 10 minutes for the video to process and be returned to you. But while it's doing that, there are still a couple of things that the assessor has to do manually. But keep in mind that this is shoulder to shoulder with a certified ergonomist from our organization leading them through this practical exercise of doing a thorough assessment. The forces are measured and entered manually, as well as the hand risk factors. The hand risk factors have to be done manually at the moment because the artificial intelligence can't quite measure the angles for the hands and wrists, but this is being worked on currently, and we anticipate that it will be included in the system by the end of this year. But we work through this with your team members, and usually this only takes 5 to 10 minutes, and by the time we've completed that, the video has been returned to us, and the AI has mapped a skeleton over the individual and has calculated, you can see in green, yellow, and red, how far away from neutral a particular joint is. So not only does it show you visually the relative risk level of each joint as it gets further and further away from neutral posture, but it will also count how many times that joint goes into that posture and how long that joint stays in there as a percentage of the cycle time. And this data, combined with the force data and the hand and wrist data, is boiled up into an overall score for the job. In this case, it's 37. All that means is that anything more than 30 is high. Jobs are ranked on a scale of from 0 to 100. So there's quite a bit of fidelity in the scoring system that will allow you to prioritize one job against another. I'll show you that in a second. Now, down in the matrix on the far right-hand side, you can do a quick scan and check which body parts are at highest risk relative to one another. What that allows your team to do is to focus in this case, on the left and right elbow postures, where we're going to get the biggest bang for our buck when we move on into the job improvement process and we're moving on to documenting those improvements. After we've spent some time, and again, these should only be about 5 to 10 minutes each, we can very quickly have an overall risk map of our facility that ranks the jobs from highest risk to lowest risk. And so we can use this quantitative data to prioritize which jobs we work on first. So what this means is that you're not just putting out fires or reacting to people's injuries or discomfort. You are using a quantitative scientific system the same way that you measure noise with a dosimeter that tells you without emotion where you should be focusing your improvement efforts. So this is a huge key in terms of goal setting for your ergonomics team, where you can say, we think we have time and resources to fix one red job per quarter. So now we know what the red jobs are and we can work on those. In addition to that whole body risk assessment tool, there's also additional tools built into the system for manual material handling, like the NIOSH lifting equation and like the Liberty Mutual push-pull carry tables. So you do get a comprehensive assessment, a very well-rounded picture of where your sources of risk are. Once you move on to developing improvements for that job, then you're going to be able to consult design guidelines for ergonomics built into the system. All of these guidelines are based on the anthropometry of the working population. And you can see that there are different guidelines for different global populations. This is because we have a research department at VelocityEHS that makes sure that our anthropometric data is as up to date as possible. Again, this is a huge deal for our customers that have operations around the globe. So within, for example, this example of standing workstations, you're going to be able to click on each individual number, and it's going to tell you exactly what that relates to, so that when your team writes the work order to maintenance, they can be as specific as possible. Some other examples built within the design guidelines: material handling equipment recommendations for tools, both powered and non-powered. In a case of a pistol grip pneumatic driver, like we're looking at here, there has specific design guidelines for handle length, handle diameter, trigger force, weight of the tool, torque, all to try and minimize the risk that your employees are being exposed to on a day-to-day basis. So the learn and the do portion, to summarize, is where your team members are primarily going to live and breathe. For you, it's going to be most useful if I just presume that you're the champion of the program or you're the owner. You're going to be spending your time in the manage section. And this is where you get this nice dashboard where it's going to show you immediately your advanced tool body part scores, your overall risk score, your improvement plan summary, What are the sources of your direct causes, so you can start to plan, so you can see easily what is causing the risk within your facilities. You can tease out this specific dashboard. You can boil it down by geographic region, by facility, by department within that facility. You can make these, you can tailor this to have it look however you like. This dashboard, each one of these, actually serves in addition as a portal into additional reports. So here's an example of the improvement plan summary where it shows more detail. But for example, on the far left, it'll show us how many improvements we've completed. Using the hierarchy of controls, are they engineering changes, or are they work practice control, or are they PPE? It can show us how many improvements are overdue. Are we doing what we said we were going to do? And it will be able to show you who owns those particular improvements, and then perhaps you can just follow up with them with a very gentle email knucklegram saying, hey, I assume that this is just an administrative error and you've made the changes and you just haven't had time to go back into your system and fix it. So I wanted to show you these examples just to let you know that the work, obviously, everything is going to be organized in one central location, but you're going to be able to go into a monthly or a quarterly meeting with your boss and to call up some of these dashboard reports, tease out the exact data that you want, and present it in a very easy to digest way. And you'll be able to show your progress. So in summary, this is your homepage. I haven't been able to show you everything contained within the system and how you can search solutions, within your organization to see if anyone else has implemented a lift table, for example. I haven't shown you the video library or how even a certified ergonomist is at the other end of the phone if you need us for a little bit of advice, because now you can just send us a video link and we can have a quick look at the video and send you back a couple of bullet point solutions, bullet point thoughts on how you can take the next step. And the reason we can do that now is because we can trust the assessment data, because it's right there done by the artificial intelligence and the motion capture. So just as an aside, so if you end up with ergonomics done right, which is how our approach to this has always been, the ramifications of this are beyond just driving down your strains and sprains. Companies that have a mature and well dug in ergonomics process also see improvements with quality and productivity. Of course, if you move something closer to an individual, not only do you decrease the risk of injury on the shoulder, for example, from having to reach to 24 inches from the front of the standing surface, but now it takes less time to do that. So one can imagine the tremendous gains in productivity that you're going to have by not delivering stuff on the ground, not delivering stuff too far away. Certainly reduce turnover. Now in the age where everyone is hiring right now, and employees maybe are willing to walk across the street for $1 more an hour, it's going to make a difference if you have a mature ergonomics program that shows your employees that they can participate in the improvement of their own workstation. That is a huge deal, and we've seen it where our customers report reduced turnover as a result of that. And then the impacts on stock performance and just all of the business aspects that you normally wouldn't associate with just changing a workstation or redesigning it. But the data suggests that this actually happens, especially with stock performance. And if you reach out to me, I'm happy to share exactly some specifics on that. So again, what we strive to do is to revolutionize how companies use the science of workplace ergonomics beyond just a form that you've downloaded for free off the internet and with no real training on how it works, and you have differences amongst assessors and you don't really have a direction for your ergonomics team. You can leverage this technology to have a common understanding of what ergo is and what it isn't, a common set of tools. And now with the motion capture, we've removed that inter-rater reliability issue where now it doesn't matter who takes the video, the score is always going to be the same. So your improvement efforts are accelerated. So we've got a few minutes left to take some questions, and I'm happy to kick it back. This is my contact information. Again, this is a very this presentation can't be all things to all people. And I imagine there's a large cross section of businesses and companies on the line today. So I encourage you, please, to reach out to me, and I can put you in touch with someone in our organization, or if it's a question that I can answer as a certified ergonomist, I'm happy to do so. I put my LinkedIn header in here because it has a picture of me golfing in Arizona. And for those of you that weren't here at the top of the call, I'm in Ann Arbor, Michigan, and it is snowing here today. So I changed this at the last minute as more of a vision of where I'd like to be right now in my brain. So I'll ask if there's any questions.
Wishful thinking. Thank you, Ken. At this time, Kay will rejoin us to moderate our Q&A for today.
Okay, great. Thank you. It looks like we have about 3 or 4 minutes left for questions. Just a reminder, if you'd like to ask a question, please type it into the chat window on the right side of your screen and send it to all panelists or to everyone. Kent, we have one question already. Someone asks, does the motion capture technology work for seated tasks?
Great question. That is a very, that's been a common discussion item. We are releasing an update, an enhancement on April 30th, where you're going to have the option to toggle the legs off so that it will work. It does work for seated postures because it's not just going to think that a person is in a sustained crouch just because they see the angle of their hip and leg. So through machine learning, and this is sort of the scary part, but you will have the option to designate whether it's a seated or standing task, and that's happening in 10 days. So for our current customers, they're going to see that change. So.
Okay, great. Thanks, Kent. Looks like we might don't have another question right away, but I just want to give the opportunity for people to type in some questions while we have some time. I guess, when you give this kind of presentation, are there any other common questions that come up that you think might be helpful for this group?
Yeah, usually a lot of the questions revolve around the motion capture tool. And so I'll come back and address that. I realize we just have a couple of minutes, but I do want to say that is the thing that people focus on. But I really want to impart on folks that this is an ergonomics management system so that you have the ability, you have an unlimited number of users to have access to this. So where this is useful is as you lose team members off your ergonomics team because they get promoted or things like that, or they leave the company, it's very easy now for you to recruit new team members. You can, you the process owner at the site, and you can assign them the e-learning courses this afternoon, and then they can meet you on the floor tomorrow morning, and you can work shoulder to shoulder with them. And there is no interruption in the continuity of your team. There's no loss of momentum. And so that's been a tremendous advantage for our customers, is that they didn't have to wait until they lost enough people to justify bringing an ergonomist like me back to do another in-classroom training. You shouldn't have to do that really ever again after we launch it. So that's been a tremendous advantage. Going back to the motion capture, the questions that we typically get are, does it work outside? We're in pharmaceutical, and so often it's in a clean room environment. The answer to both of those questions is yes. For example, in a clean room environment, I have taken a video through the plexiglass window of an employee wearing a white gown with a white hood, a white hairnet, white beard net, against a white background, pushing a large white carboy, and the motion capture was able to identify all the joints and accurately do the quantitative assessment. As long as the video is of sufficient quality, then the mocap will cover it. In fact, for another company that I was speaking to, I actually did some research before the call, found a YouTube video from 10 years ago of one of their operations, and I filmed it on my screen on my phone and then ran it through the motion capture and was able to handle it. So there won't be, I promise you, if you're thinking, well, we have a different weird work environment and it probably won't work, I would think that you probably would be surprised. And let's try it. So, sorry, that was probably more than what you asked for.
No, no worries. I think we have time for just one. I think this might be hopefully a quick question before we wrap up today. Is the 3D SSPP software just a part of the Humantech Ergo module?
So great question. And this is for all the legacy Ergo geeks out there. So there's a legacy tool called the University of Michigan 3D Static Strength Prediction Program. You can see why they call it 3D SSPP. Humantech took over or acquired that tool just a few months ago. We are in the process right now of upgrading that tool to be integrated ultimately into Humantech Industrial Ergonomics. The short answer is it is not currently a part of the system because we have to do quite a bit of updates to it. For those of you that are familiar with the tool, you will recognize why that's necessary. The interface was quite dated, although the information and the usefulness of the tool is legendary, and we just want to make it legendary again. So we are working on that, and it's on the roadmap for our product team this year. So I would anticipate that sometime before the end of the year, we'll have an update on when it will be integrated.
Okay, great. Thank you, Kent. Unfortunately, that's all the time we have for today. Just a note, we'll be sharing all questions from today's event with VelocityEHS Humantech. So if we didn't get to your question, please know that we'll pass it along. My thanks to Kent Hatcher for his presentation, to VelocityEHS Humantech for sponsoring today's product demo webinar, and to all of our participants. Just wanted to let everyone know that registration is open for 2 more Synergist webinars. Please join us next week on Thursday, April 29th for Re-Entry Planning Healthy Buildings, sponsored by SGS Galson, and on May 10th, speakers from SKC will present Measuring Occupational Noise, an Easier Approach. Thank you all so much again, and have a great day.
Thank you, Kay. Thank you, Kent. This concludes today's webcast.
Thank you very much. Thank you, AIHA. Appreciate it.
Thanks to you, everyone. And we will send all registrants an email tomorrow with the link. Please visit our event calendar to sign up for future webcasts. Take care, everybody. Thank you.